Hello and welcome to today's MSSQLtips.com webcast, real-time data validation API for SQL Server using Python and Power Apps. I'm Jeremy Cadlick from MSSQL Tips, your host for today's session. I'm proud to introduce today Hristo Hristov as today's speaker. He's prepared 6 or 7 demos for today's webcast to show you how to get real-time data validation through a Power Apps application as well as Python code. I definitely want to publicly thank him and appreciate the time he took to pull these demos together to share with the community to show you just how easy it is to improve the quality of your SQL Server data in real time. In terms of housekeeping items, please keep in mind today's session will be recorded and a follow-up email will be sent to all the attendees after the webcast to continue your learning. If you have any technical difficulties or questions during the webcast, please post them in the Q&A portion of your GoToWebinar controls. We'll try to have Hristo answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A portion of today's webcast. So Hristo, can you start off with some introductions for us today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jeremy. So this is what we have on the agenda for today. Some brief introductions. Then we jump to the demo section where we're going to showcase the 2 core services that we're addressing today. These are the Personator Identity and Personator Consumer under Power Apps. We'll wrap it up with a Python demo and we'll conclude with the Q&A. Before we jump in, quick word about myself. My name is Hristo. My background is in IT and requirements engineering. I've been a Power Platform engineer since 2017. I'm a Microsoft certified data professional since 2019, and I hold numerous certifications in the BI and AI area. And I've been working as a data scientist since 2021. Feel free to check out my MSSQLtips.com author page, as well as my LinkedIn profile. That said, Jeremy, would you mind taking the next one, please?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for introducing yourself. I also want to introduce Melissa here really quickly. For those of you that aren't familiar with Melissa Solutions, they've actually been delivering data quality solutions for over 37 years. Some folks might have heard about them, especially on the SSIS side. So they have a set of widgets there that kind of integrate directly in SSIS. So there again, there's no learning curve, nothing along those lines. And what they really are able to do is help validate, enrich, match, and provide what's called a golden record. There again, that kind of perfect record based on the data set that you have. So and they have a lot more to offer as well. They have there again, reference data sets, they have healthcare data, they have business validation data, federal, local government data, mailing, marketing, etc. There again, across 240 countries around the globe. But today, what we're really going to focus on are 2 products. There again, the Personator Consumer and the Personator Identity. And really what these applications do is help businesses identify and really verify the identity for a potential customer, whether it's something that they're needing to do for customer onboarding, for financial transactions, travel, online transactions, and more. And why is this really needed? Well, I think the chart on the right really paints the picture. So this is data from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission here in the United States from 2017 to 2021. And the data is related to credit card fraud, government documents, or benefits fraud. And then the third area is actually loan or lease fraud. When you look at the bar chart there, it just jumps, massive jump from 2019 to 2020 in fraudulent transactions. And what this does is it's a really significant financial impact to organizations and the government. So without proper data for organizations to verify everyone they're interacting with, they're again sometimes known as know your customer, they're facing a tremendous amount of financial risk. And there again, the risk just continues to grow. So I want to talk a little bit about use cases before Hristo jumps into a couple of demos here right off the bat. And when we think of use cases, the most prevalent one is really for financial organizations, financial transactions, whether that's banks, cryptocurrency, lenders, e-commerce transactions. But there's other areas too in terms of online gaming, online gambling. And then kind of universally, if you take a really big step back, it's really necessary when you're onboarding new clients, which is really the case for most, if not all, organizations. So Hristo, with all that being said, do you think you can walk through some demos and basically show how this data validation works?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let's kick it off with the first demo set for today. We're going to focus on the Personator Identity. We have a demo Power App for that purpose. We're going to cover 3 demos over here. But before that, let me just walk you through a bit through the API endpoint. So what exactly the Personator Identity can do for you. That's verify correct and standardized names, addresses, emails, and phones in real time. You can verify individuals in real time using a number of matching options such as proof of address, identity verification, or what we call elDV, based on name, address, date of birth, national ID, phone, or emails. You can also do the proprietary Melissa 2x2 match, which is a match against two sources using elDV configurations for both sources. And finally, you can also screen individuals against national watch lists. So we're going to showcase this today with these three demos that we have. Demo number one, we have an identity check and verify with national ID. We're going to use as inputs a full name, a date of birth, social security number, city, address, state, zip, and country. And we are going to get back parsed name and address, a confidence score, and data sources results. In demo number two, we're going to do the same check and verify, but this time we're going to use contact data. So instead of a national ID, we will actually input an email and a phone, again with a city, address, state, zip, and country. And we will observe, again, the confidence score and also a different data source result. In demo number three, in this demo set, we will check and verify a foreign individual, again, with some basic data such as the full name, date of birth, contact information, and address information, but from a different country. And we will observe the confidence score and the fact that no data source results were returned. So I will quickly switch to my demo application over here, and we will go to the identity check section. So we have a basic form with the inputs for the data attributes that I mentioned. So I'm starting to fill in the data here for the first demo. We have the full name. We have a date of birth as the next input. Next, as I said, we're going to put in the social security number. We will skip the email and the phone. And of course, we will fill in city, the address line, state, zip code, and country finally. So you also notice here there's two checkboxes, check and verify. These are important parameters, important actions that we use to send as parameters to the API endpoint. So we need to select them and then we hit the submit button. Once we hit the submit button, we get results back. So you can observe the confidence score was determined to be high. So chances are this is a real person. To the left of the confidence score, you see the parsed name and address. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see a list of data sources. In this case, we got a match against only one data source. But for that data source, we have a number of different result codes, so we can actually verify that result. I'm going to reset the form and proceed to demo number two. In demo number two, we're going to fill in the full name, date of birth, and then we're going to skip the national ID, but we're going to fill in an email, a phone, a city, and the other address attributes as previously mentioned. We are going to keep the check and verify options switched on, and we're going to hit the submit button again. So we get our results back. You can see that the confidence result again is high, so chances are this is a real person. We're also getting back our parsed name and address data, and we got back a data source result, which in this case is proprietary 5. So this is a different data source result with, you can get the same result codes or different, it depends on the case. In this case, it's a different data source. Proprietary 5 is a special data source that Melissa curates and maintains for you. There will be a brief note on that at the end of today's webcast. I will move on to demo number 3 now. Now we're going to use a bit of mismatching data. So we're filling in the full name, date of birth, and that is okay for now. We're going to skip again the national ID. we are going to fill in a email and phone, address data, and a postal code. However, the country this time will be different. And I want you to just take a look and see how this is actually obviously mismatching data, because you have a phone number that starts with a USA prefix, but the address is actually in another country, in this case, Austria. When I submit this data, I get a confidence score result of low. Chances are this is not a real person, or the data quality is pretty low here. However, I also get my parse name and address. So actually, Melissa still did that work for you, and this is a technically correct name and a technically correct address. But observe that actually you had no data sources results over here. So the data sources section is completely blank, and of course you don't get any result codes as part of that. So switching back to my presentation again, and moving on to demo set number 2. Here we will showcase the Melissa Personator consumer. This is a service designed to verify correct and standardized names, addresses, phones, and emails, retrieve move information, append demographics, and append geographic and census data. So in this section, we have overall 4 demos. Demo 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand. But starting with demo 1, we're going to perform a check and verify and append with an email. So our inputs will be an address, a zip code, and an email, and we're going to get back the verified data, a formatted address, and specific result codes. In demo number 2, we will perform a check, verify, and append with a name this time. So the inputs will be an address, a zip code, and a name. The results will be the same, of course, relevant for the inputs we provided. Demo number 3, we will do a check, verify, and append with a name. Inputs will be full name, address, and zip. And the results, of course, will be again the verified data with formatted address. In demo number 4, we will do the same thing as in demo number 3. However, this time we will switch the move option on, and we will see how the address was corrected according to the most recent data that Melissa has on that person. So that said, I will switch back to my demo app here, and I will move on to demo set number 2. So we'll open the second section of the app, Personator consumer, like this, and you will see that this is a form that, yeah, it has similar inputs, but it looks a bit different, so it's suited for this demo. We have a section for the personal details, we have a section for contact details and address details. So what I'm doing right now is I'm filling in the address lines, and I also input a zip code and an email. So these are the inputs for the first demo. And after I fill in these inputs, I'm going to check the relevant checkboxes, which are check, verify, and append. And I will hit the validate button. Once I do that, I should get pretty quickly my results back. As you can see here, I got a full name, I got a phone number, and I got the address completed. So basically, Melissa checked that data for that person and served it back to you. It's very important to also mention the result codes here. So you get a lot of result codes. It depends, of course, on the inputs. In this case, we get a lot of result codes, and these result codes are for that call to the endpoint specifically, as compared to the previous demos where we got result codes per data sources. So in this case, we get the result codes per the call that we performed. For this demo, you can see a bunch of different result codes, which are suggesting that this is high quality or mostly high quality data, or certain attributes of our inputs were of high quality. You can see this on the screen, such as the name and address match, the address and phone match, among others. So I can close this pop-up with the result codes, and I can proceed now to demo number 2 for the Personator consumer. Very similar to demo number 1. However, instead of an email, I will fill in a full name. So we're going to have the address the zip code and a full name for that person, and we're going to hit the validate button again. So what I tried doing is highlight the boxes, some of the boxes where data is coming back or we're inputting data in green, so you can kind of follow what's happening. So in this case, we got our formatted address back as usual, and we also got additional information on the city and the state, but no phone number and email. We can also check the result codes for that call. So you see there's actually fewer of them. And as I said, these result codes, they depend, first of all, on the data, on the inputs, on the quality of those inputs, and of course, on the data that is being found for these personas. So in this example here, we have the address is valid and deliverable according to official postal agencies. For example, we have the locality was added or changed. So there is also a change information that you can observe or find out about in these different result codes. Next, we're moving to demo number 3. So I will input over here the address line, so an address line and the postal code along with a full name. I will keep the check, verify, and append options switched on, but I will keep the move option switched off. So now, having these inputs, I will again hit the validate button. And what you're observing right now is that we got back a formatted address, and technically that is a correct address. But we're going to see in the next demo how actually this is the wrong address for that particular person. You can also see that again we got back a city and a state. So basically the address was parsed and the data was verified. So that was demo number 3. So now we're going to reset this and we're going to move to demo number 4. And the difference here will be that we're going to switch on the move option. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm just filling in the form again, and I will switch the move option on. And again, I will click on validate, and you can see data was verified successfully. This is the pop-up that we have on the top. But the biggest difference over here is that we got back a formatted address that is clearly a different address as the one in the previous demo. So the move option or the move parameter that we sent to the Melissa Personator consumer API endpoint was successfully able to detect that this person has actually changed addresses, and we got back a corrected address, so the most up-to-date address for that person. And because of that, we also got back a phone number and an email. So this is quite an advantage of the move option, and I can also show you the result codes. So there will be quite a few of result codes over here. So I will click on the pop-up menu, and you can observe, for example, phone number found in Personator database, the name and address match, the address and phone match, the address and email match. So these are a number of matches and a number of checks that the Melissa service performed according to the data supplied. All right, now I will switch back to my presentation and I will give you a brief summary of what we just saw because this concluded the Power Apps demo section. So we examined 2 services, the Personator Identity and the Personator Consumer. We had 2 different forms designed according to a simple use case. The common thing was that there are very few required inputs and many possible combinations. For instance, you can input a full name and address with an email, or actually just an address and an email, along many other combinations. And you will get back a variety of results represented by different result codes. Also for the identity service, you also saw the global confidence score that you get for every call. You can save the cleansed and verified data after having benefited from Melissa's proprietary curated data sources. And finally, any API-aware app such as Power Apps can integrate with Melissa. Okay, that said, I can also proceed to our Python demo for today, which is the final demo that we have. Our environment is a Jupyter notebook running Python 3.9, so it's pretty standard. We have some popular external packages helping us construct a data object holding the staged data. In this case, an address, a full name, and a postal code. Actually, I'm using the same data as in demo 3 and 4 that we saw previously. And we're going to run an identity check first, and then we're going to run an identity check with a move option. So we're going to see again the validated name, but also a corrected address along with other data attributes and match results. So let me switch back to my Python demo. So this is the environment that we have. I will begin by importing the libraries that we need. So in this case, we need the requests library, JSON, and pandas libraries. These are all required so we can format, or we can prepare our data in the correct format for the Melissa API endpoint. The next and most important thing that we need to do is to construct this data object that I briefly mentioned while I was on the slide. So in this case, we have actually a dictionary that we're going to convert to a data frame, but I don't want to spend too much on these technicalities. The important thing here is that you have a dictionary, so you have a lot of keys and a lot of values. And these keys are actually predefined by Melissa. So you need to follow a certain format, which is well documented and is available online. So the documentation is really good at it. And for example, you can see over here that we have transmission reference. We have a certain actions that we need to define. We have columns. We have options, and we have records. And you can see the final result. The transmission reference, for example, is not a mandatory column, or is not a mandatory key. Later, it turned into a column. The actions are, we have two rows, row 0 and row 1, because we're going to perform 2 API calls. So the number of API calls is going to define the number of records in your data object with staging data. Finally, in the records column, we have a nested data object, which actually holds our data, or the data that we would like to check against Melissa's data sources. The next thing that I'm going to do after I have this data object, I will convert it to a JSON representation. So it's just using the JSON library in Python, just converting the data frame into a JSON representation. And after that, you will see my variable result codes. So with that variable, we're going to do a simple mapping between the result codes and their verbose description. So ideally, we want to show the text in the description instead of just of a more cryptic code. This is also information available on Melissa's website. So after I do that, I can also jump to the actual API call, which happens in this cell over here, and observe that for each row in the data object that we constructed, we are sending a request. So that's why we have a for loop that is going to execute twice, because we have 2 records in our data object. We're going to handle back the results. So this is the payload that we're getting, the response payload that we're getting back from Melissa, and we're handling back the result. So we're displaying, in this case, the result codes with their verbose text description according to the mapping that we performed. You can see the results for client 1 or client 0, the first one. There's very few result codes, and as you will notice, probably the name sounds familiar already because of the previous demo, but you will notice that this is indeed a technically correct address, but it's not the correct address for that person. This, of course, is visible in the results for client number 2, which is the second row in our data object, where we have the same person, but this time with the correctly set address because of the move option. So because the move option was set on, we were able to detect what is actually the up-to-date address for that particular person. And of course, the result codes reflect that. So we have quite a bit more result codes, and we can follow up with those result codes what actually happened while Melissa was parsing that data. For example, the phone number is valid, and remember, we didn't even input a phone number. Phone number found in Personator database, the name and address match, among other result codes. Okay, that concludes the Python demo, and I will switch back to my slides to give you a brief summary of what we just did. The Melissa endpoints are straightforward to set up and pass data to. As you saw, it's very straightforward to do so with a bit of help from some external libraries. For every person that you have, you will have to do a separate call. So if you want to check 1,000 persons, then you have to do 1,000 separate API calls. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. I would say the endpoints are serve back results very promptly, but if you have to check 1,000 or 10,000 people, obviously you need to be mindful of those data volumes if there's such. There are several options that can be used for each call, and obviously in a script, these options can be dynamically configured. So for example, you can define how the person's name will be handled. So Melissa will know if every time you're passing a full name or a first name only. There is a lot of these options, and all of them are also documented in the Melissa documentation. Lastly, I can say that there's also an option for an SDK to be developed around the endpoints. Here on my next slide, I would like to wrap up the demo section with kind of a head-to-head comparison of the two services we have been talking about. The main difference is that the consumer service, that was the second service that we examined, can offer data enrichment, but offers neither international coverage nor screening against watch lists. So if you ask me what's the biggest difference, probably that would be my kind of first answer. Additionally, on the right-hand side, you can see the different data sources that Melissa maintains for its integrators, ranging from credit through government, commercial, consumer, all the way to postal. Remember, in our demos, we saw credit from reporting agencies and proprietary, which is a set of custom data sources that Melissa curates and maintains. And I believe this wraps the demos up. So Jeremy, would you mind taking it away from here?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Haristo. So we talk about Melissa, and as Haristo demonstrated earlier in his session, from a technical perspective, there's definitely a lot of value in terms of high performance. Everybody needs high performance. Accurate data validation, there again, integration with anything, any programming language that's API aware, as well as a very low learning curve. So from a technical perspective, we can get started very quickly, and there again, provide a lot of value very quickly to our organization. And then from a business perspective, it's really the protection against fraud, and really that fraud has a significant impact to organizations, and that's where Melissa can really provide value to either domestically here in the United States or globally, depending on your business needs. So from here, I just want to go ahead and launch a quick poll as we start our Q&A portion for today's webcast, and we're kind of bumping up against time. But if you would like to learn more about the Melissa Data Solutions, please feel free to respond to today's poll. So if you'd like a personal demo, free trial, more information and pricing, or yes, but not right now, if you could please respond to the poll, definitely would appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and also open the floor up for some questions with the time we have remaining. If anyone from the community does have questions, please feel free to post them in the GoToWebinar controls. So Haristo, I think I'm going to take a couple of these just based on the time we have. So there were some questions related to enrichment. So I'm not sure if I have the complete answer here, but if you are looking for enrichment there again from Melissa, there again across their products, they do provide data enrichment in terms of longitude, latitude type data, CAS certified mailings, demographic and firmographic data. They provide, data matching and golden records, reference sets data for, healthcare companies, and then there again, both domestic and international validation for a ton of different data points there again that are needed. Question for you, Haristo, is related to bulk data validation with the API. Would that be possible with something like a for loop as you were showing?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, you can definitely check more than one person at a time. It would, yeah, really be predicated on actually the amount of people. So the way I would do it, whether with a for loop or some other technical solution, would actually depend on the volume of data that I have to handle. I remember I tried a couple of things, for example, with the staging table in SQL. So obviously that can be a very big table. And yes, absolutely, you can have some sort of a batch solution, so you can pass not just one by one, but like in a batch inputs to any of Melissa's endpoints.
Awesome, thank you so much. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a poll up right now. If you could please take a minute to vote, we'd certainly appreciate it as we kind of wrap up here today. So if you'd like more information about any of the Melissa solutions, whether it be a personal demo, free trial, more information and pricing, please feel free to respond. If you are looking for immediate information about the Melissa solutions, there are 2 handouts in the GoToWebinar controls. So you can there again, go ahead and download those right now and get some information if you'd like. We did have another question related to, and I'm going to take this one, Haristo, in terms of how the API can be used. So there were particular programming languages asked about in terms of ASP.NET and .NET, Java, et cetera. To the best of my knowledge, all those languages would be supported. There also, you can think about the usage in terms of web apps, CRM apps, call center apps, anywhere where you really need to validate there again, that personal information data in real time. So there again, whether you have a call center where folks are on the phone or a web app where you need to basically have some exchange in order to validate someone before, as part of a business process, Melissa can integrate at those points. All right, so at this point in time, if everyone could please take a last minute to vote, then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Haristo, any last minute words for today?
No, I think that was it. I hope the audience enjoyed the demos as much as I enjoyed making and showing them. So see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haristo. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll at this time. This is Jeremy Cadlick. Just want to thank Haristo for providing all the content for today's session. I want to thank Melissa for sponsoring today's event. Please keep in mind today's session is being recorded. We will send out an email for you to check out the archive. This is Jeremy Cadlick. Have a great day, and please tell a friend about MS SQL Tips. Thank you.